Daily Words of God.
Who sets the outcome of man? There's another most important matter, and that's your attitude toward God. This attitude is crucial. It determines whether ultimately you will walk toward destruction or into a beautiful destination that God has prepared for you. In the age of kingdom, God has already worked for more than 20 years, and over the course of these 20 years, perhaps your hearts have been a bit unsure about your performance. However, in God's heart, He has made an actual and truthful record for each and every one of you. Beginning from when each person starts following Him and listening to His preaching, understanding more and more of the truth, all the way to when they perform their duty, God has a record of each and every one of these displays. When someone does their duty, when they're being faced with all manner of circumstances, all manner of trials, what is the person's attitude? How do they perform? How do they feel toward God in their heart? God has an account of all of this, a record of all of it. Perhaps from your point of view, these issues are confusing. However, from where God stands, they're all crystal clear, and there isn't even the slightest hint of sloppiness. This is an issue that involves the outcome of each and every person, and their fates and future prospects as well. Even more, this is where God expends all of His painstaking efforts. Hence, God doesn't dare to neglect it in the slightest, and won't tolerate any sloppiness. God is recording this account of mankind, recording an account of the entire course of man following God, from the beginning right up to the end. Your attitude toward God in this time will determine your fate. Is this not true? Up until now, do you believe that God is righteous? Are God's actions appropriate? Do you still have any other picture of God in your heads?
No.
Then do you say that man's outcome is for God to set or for man himself to set?
It's for God to set.
Who is it that sets it?
God.
You're not sure, are you? Brothers and sisters of the Hong Kong churches, speak up. Who sets it?
Man sets it himself.
Man sets it himself? Then doesn't that mean it has nothing to do with God? Who wants to speak up from the Korean churches?
God establishes man's outcome based on all of their actions and deeds, and based on the path they walk.
This is a very objective response. There's a fact here that I must inform all of you. In the course of God's salvation work, He sets a standard for man. This standard is that man can obey the Word of God and walk in God's way. It is this standard that is used to weigh man's outcome. If you practice in accordance with this standard of God, then you can obtain a good outcome. If you don't, then you cannot obtain a good outcome. Then who is it, you say, that sets this outcome? It's not God alone who sets it, but rather God and man together. Is this correct?
Yes.
Why is that? Because it's God who actively wants to engage in the work of mankind's salvation and prepare a beautiful destination for man. Man is the target of God's work, and this outcome, this destination, is what God prepares for man. If there was no target for his work, then God wouldn't need to do this work. If God didn't do this work, then man wouldn't have an opportunity for salvation. Man is the target for salvation, and although man is the passive side in this process, it is the attitude of this side that determines whether or not God will be successful in his work to save mankind. If not for the guidance that God gives you, then you wouldn't know his standard, and you would have no objective. If you have this standard, this objective, yet you don't cooperate, you don't put it into practice, you don't pay the price, then you still won't obtain this outcome. This is why we say that this outcome cannot be separated from God, and it cannot be separated from man. And now you know who sets man's outcome.